someone's listening right now, they're driving, they're at home, they're at work, and they're just thinking about that idea. And they're like, I know I want to do this and I have it in my heart to do this, but maybe they're a little afraid to push forward on it. What would you tell that person?
Don't second guess it. If you're getting that pull, that tug, it's for a reason. And you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to make a decision. We talked about owning the consequences. The consequences are going to be good. And don't be surprised when you start taking steps after that decision, when your world starts to fall apart a little bit. If you're married, your spouse will start to give you a hard time, or you have pets, your pet decides to get sick, or you have children and your children start acting up. The world that you knew is going to change around you because you're trying something different and you're kind of challenging the status quo. That's all normal. Don't take that as a sign to stop. Take that as a sign of, I need to keep going because my new normal awaits, and I need to get the success by not quitting, but also by realizing that I might be surprised to find that there's going to be people who jump in my corner and decide to support me.
Really?
And those people may surprise you. Expect that. Expect that. You don't have to go at it alone. There's people that want to support you. He asked me the question, what is a good leader to you? And I said, he is someone who blah, blah, blah. And I gave the very canned answer of what a leader is, but I said he. And it didn't even occur to me that I said he until he pointed it out. And to me, that was a big reality check because I realized how immersed in the culture I was of having all men leading me. And I thought that if you had to be a leader, you had to be a he, and I was disqualifying myself. So it was the first time I realized that I hadn't even taken the time to get to know myself and show up as myself. So why should anyone pick me if I haven't even given them who I really am?
Our guest today helps business professionals reach optimum performance, fulfillment, and helps them navigate their unique path to success. And she's here to help you find yours as well. She's a keynote speaker, a career strategist, and a leadership coach, truly making a global impact. Welcome to the show, host of Powerful at Work Radio, Rosa Ponce de Leon. How's it going?
Hi. Thank you for having me, Mike.
No problem.
I'm doing great.
And you have to refresh my memory. Did I get that right? Because your name is so much fun to say, but it's only fun if I'm saying it correctly. I don't want you to...
You got close. It's Ponce de Leon, but it's perfect.
I just have to say it faster and more confidently, and I think I got it.
I think faster you'd be good. Just be confident.
I need more... I'm on like my 12th cup of coffee. I'm not sure I can have more caffeine if that's going to help me or not. I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're extremely busy. You have a lot of things. You wear many hats, and you're taking time to be not only with me, but with our audience, which is why you agreed to do this, to help inspire people to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. That's why I do this show. And I bring our audience great guests like yourself to tell your story and help people realize, hey, I've done it. And if I can do it, you can do it. And here's some of the cool ways. So I'd love to kind of peel back and let people know before we get into the questions here and into the interview that they can reach you. Your website is simply your name. So it's RosaPoncedeleon.com. And guys, I made it clickable in the show notes. So it's super easy for you guys to get to Rosa's website, and all her social media links are clickable as well. So super, super easy for you. But guys, here's the scoop. And go back into this. So here's the scoop. The word on the street is that Rosa, right? Here she is. She's ready and willing to answer all of your questions. So I put these together knowing that the audience is ready and chomping at the bit to kind of hear from you. But the word on the street is that you build bulletproof work cultures. Many people working from home right now during the pandemic. We're kind of in that like part 2 of the pandemic right now as we record in August of 2021. Remote work is like becoming even more popular as we record this. Do you feel that teams face new issues with company culture right now?
Absolutely. I think there's an adaptive side to working from home. I think most businesses are realizing that productivity has increased with people having that flexibility. And I think that the sweet spot is having people still coming into the workplace where that's an option, right? There's places that are completely online and don't have a brick and mortar place to report to. But the places that do have that do kind of have a mixture. And I think that mixture is the ideal spot. But if it's a completely new thing for you, you've never had that, there's definitely some adaptive issues just in general creating team dynamic events where it's not just about a meeting about business. Maybe we take 10 minutes to have some playtime or to ask a silly question and have everybody answer it, and everybody answers it and makes everybody else laugh and you learn something about each other. Like injecting things like that kind of take the place of water cooler talk or other interactions that you would normally have that are highly informal and unplanned. They now have to be planned.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was thinking, because I've worked in office environments where I've had a lot of fun working on a team, and I thrive in a team environment. I love making people happy, smile, just goof around, but also be professional. And that water cooler talk was something I did look forward to, but also there was a point when it was like, okay, we got to get back to work. We need to be efficient and effective today. And you kind of miss out on that, but at the same time, you just hit on it. Well, you could still do remote group activities and have like a 10-minute icebreaker before the event starts, whether it's a networking event or I'm in a mastermind group. And I do save what I call parking lot time. So these little side conversations that happen, and I kind of say, okay, let's put those in the parking lot. So at the end, we can come back to it. So you feel there are ways and people have been adapting to it. So there should be no reason. I mean, obviously, face-to-face is very unique. People are energy. People are energy. We feel it, but we can still achieve a lot of that digitally, is what you're saying.
Right. And I think communications obviously are different because it's like trying to communicate on a text. Who hasn't had the experience where you say something and the person on the other side interprets the feeling, the emotion completely different. And you're like, wait a minute, that's not at all what I said. And I think face-to-face communications can always be easier if you're very present and you're showing up. But in some cases, it's actually easier to have that separation because you're able to think and you're able to kind of plan what you're going to say. And so there's good and bad to both. But I think ultimately people will adapt if and when you set up a culture where everyone's empowered, everyone's supported, and everyone's valued. You tend to have a more healthy interaction. Such
good points, because those key pieces are important anywhere, anytime, like, value, right? Value in your people, whether that's people on your team, your customers, relationships, that stuff doesn't change. So at the core, being human is always the right choice. It's just a matter of how you're going to do it. Is it in person? Is it digital? And I know a lot of people, friends of mine, entrepreneurs, networkers, most of my friends are all crazy networkers, are all like just super excited to get back. But now we're kind of in this second, like things are getting a little crazy again with COVID. So it looks like we're going to be doing more digital. And what I like about it, though, is that I can pack more into the day. Like we talked about efficiency. I'd be lucky if I could meet like 4 to 6 people a day by traveling, going to their office, sitting down, meeting them at a local coffee shop for an hour. And by the end of the day, I get back home after 10 hours or so, and I'd be like, oh, I met like 4 people and had really quality conversations, but I could have did that in 4 hours at home. Plus, I could have got other work done. So, there's definitely benefits of each. I wanted to pick your brain on that out of the gate because as I was doing research and learning more about you, I know one of the things that is important to you and that you educate on is company culture. And it's like, wow, this is a perfect time to talk about this because it's a hot topic and a lot of people are kind of struggling to still make that change. Here's what I want to do is when I bring people on, it's not always about what you offer, product, service, or your values and things you can bring to the table. We hit on all of that, but I really like to get to know a little bit more about you. So we're going to take a quick time out, 60 seconds. We'll be right back, and we're going to learn a lot more about Rosa. So guys, stay right with us. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. All right, we're back in action with Rosa. You guys can connect with her again directly on social media. She's on LinkedIn and many others. That's all clickable in the show notes, as well as her website. You guys can check that out as well. She did a great job with it. All right, so Rosa, are you ready to go back in time?
Let's do this.
Hop in the DeLorean, right? So
yeah.
Take us back to 10-year-old Rosa. So if you can picture that, if you can feel that for a second, it's a girl with a dream, right? So I'm wondering what that dream was then when you were about 10 years old. And what were the biggest influences that you had that really shaped you into the person that you are today?
Absolutely, 100% was my parents. They actually were leaders in their own right. As immigrants, they believed that their job was to create opportunities for us as their children. They succession planning was an issue for them. They wanted to come to this country. They taught us that opportunity was something to be valued and to not be taken for granted. And they taught us to appreciate the fact that they could have a life better than they were able to have in their home country. And so we were always educated on the culture from our background in Mexican, fluent Spanish speaking from the beginning, my first language. But they always encouraged us as their children. I have two brothers, to take advantage of our education, but to give back to society and to make an impact. And fearing an unknown was not an option. You just had to go out there and try, and failure was okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those were valuable lessons that made me a strong woman. My father, I was the oldest, and my father treated me no differently than the men in the house. And he treated my mother like an equal. And even culturally, that was ahead of his time, because as much as we want to say we're modern, there's still a lot of men in the Mexican culture that think of the housewife as a housewife.
They're like 50, 60 years
a bigger
behind.
role.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And my father was not like that at all. He took my mother everywhere with him, and they were a team. And I really appreciated that type of upbringing, because I didn't see myself as any different than anyone. I felt like I'm smart, I can get some things done. And so having dreams wasn't necessarily that I knew what I wanted. It was more, I knew that whatever I set my mind to, I could get it done. And I was equally capable as anyone else.
So much in there that I want to uncover. I love that. So your culture is similar to mine. I'm Italian, so I feel like the Spanish-Italian connection is pretty similar, where, I have that old school upbringing as well. But, you got to experience a little bit more where it was equal. And having brothers, you were a little bit tougher maybe than the other girls in the neighborhood, because they didn't have that. Maybe they didn't have that kind of toughness that you grew up with. And your dad didn't want you to, whether, it was intentional or not, but kind of gave you a little bit thicker skin by being a little bit tougher in a good way.
Yeah, no, I'll give you an example. He was always fixing things, cars, building things. And I was his helper. I was like the surgeon's assistant that hands him the tools. He's already 2 steps ahead.
Right.
And if I wasn't 2 steps ahead, God help me if I give him the wrong wrench.
Yeah.
So it was one of those where he didn't take it easy on me, but I learned a ton.
That's so good. I mean, it's so important to have those moments with your parents where you have that like sidekick moment where you're helping out and you feel that level of importance. Like my dad needs me right now. I'm helping out. And, that's really, really cool. And what's interesting too, and we talked last time when we initially met, you were telling me a little bit about this, and you said that you were Spanish speaking, but you grew up in the States. So you actually spoke Spanish before you spoke English, but you were an American, which is kind of a unique situation too, right?
Right. And again, it goes back to a very strong cultural upbringing. Our family is very important. We have my parents are eldest of 14 and 10, respectively. My dad, 14, my mom, 10. And they just always had family around. We had aunts, uncles, cousins, and some people didn't understand English, and it was considered rude to have a conversation in English if other people didn't know what you were saying. It wasn't that they were anti-speaking English. It's just that we wanted to make sure everyone understood and had a good time. So I didn't actually start speaking English until I went to school, which was in kindergarten.
Oh, that's super cool. And I mean, you came into it the opposite. So I'm Italian, as I mentioned, but I don't really speak Italian. I know a few words. And the only time my parents would speak it is when they didn't want us to know what's going on. So kind of the opposite, where it was like not to be disrespectful. It was to be, we need to talk in code language. And it was usually around Christmas time, which is funny because now I know why they were talking about gifts and where the gifts were hidden and all kinds of stuff. And usually my grandparents, whenever they'd be either saying something about someone in the room or having a complaint of some sort, they would and you pick up on some of the words, right? And they're usually not the friendliest words that you can, as a kid, you pick up on. And then I would repeat
It's funny.
them.
Those are the ones we learn.
I would repeat it. And then like, I see my parents' eyes, like, you're not supposed to say that, I would get in trouble or whatever. I'm like, I'm just mimicking what I'm hearing. So that's pretty neat. And I remember growing up, I mean, I'm a late 80s, early 90s kid. So by the time I was in high school, which was, just turn of the century, all the talk was learn a second language. Everybody needs to know Spanish. So you were like, yeah, I think I got this down. I was speaking Spanish before I was speaking English. So that had to help you out a little bit as well. But I do have $1 million question here that if some people may know you, they may know this about you already because it's a big part of your story. But you have this incredible career in law enforcement, which is a predominantly male-dominated industry. Guess what? Rose is ready for it. She's got the brothers. Her dad had her growing up strong. So how did you originally get into that? Because if I recall, there wasn't necessarily like a family member in law enforcement. So how did you originally kind of butt into it? Yeah.
Yeah, most of my family's in construction or they're school teachers. That's the majority of my family. And for me, it was kind of by chance. I thought I was going to go to the legal field for sure, or even maybe the feds. But I saw a flyer when I needed a summer job, and there was a local police agency that was in need of some interns to help with their community policing strategy. And I answered the call and ended up staying there for the remainder of the 2 years that I was in college. The schedule was flexible. And before I graduated, one of the sergeants said, hey, why don't you apply here? And it was the furthest thing from my mind. But again, considering that I wanted to go feds, I was graduating at 21. I needed to wait till age 25 to apply to the feds. So I had, what have I got to lose? I ended up loving it. So a week after after graduating, I was in the police academy, and the rest is history. I just loved the profession. I love the fact that the schedule is very flexible in terms of it's not a 9 to 5. It's a compressed schedule. I work with amazing people, and there's challenges to the profession every day that you're never really sitting still and bored.
Yeah. No complacency, not a lot of boredom because something can happen at a drop, right? And you have to be on your game at all times. You got to be ready for action. Talk a little bit about, just how being a woman in that industry or in that field, some of the things that you felt maybe were challenging, but also it sounds like you handled it with grace. Not like you didn't take it like, oh, I gotta fit in, but you seem like you were very comfortable in your own skin. Did that help you out in making that transition?
It did. And I, again, owe that to my family because I was loved by all the men in my family. And I had uncles that played with me, and we were a very healthy, relatable family, and we were very honest with each other. So I don't know if you can relate from your Italian side, but we're super loud. We say it how it is. So around the guys, they're actually equally just crass with each other. Like if you're doing something wrong, there's no hesitation. They call you out. And I never took it personal because to me, it was like, of course they're going to tell me that they should tell me if I'm screwing up. Right. And so those dynamics, I never took them personal. And I was able to realize even when it came down to me being frustrated that they were doing something wrong, it took me a long time to realize that my gifting was very different than other people's. And this is where my leadership started to be developed, is I had to learn that they didn't see what I saw, that there are things that I could see like, hey, we maybe need to slow down and talk to this person because we're getting on their case and really something else is going on, or whatever's happening. Culturally, again, it was really a budding interest in setting up the right atmosphere for people to perform at their best and not just throwing them in a fire and expecting them to thrive. So I would get frustrated with leadership because I felt like people weren't noticing certain things about people, or maybe they'd be too quick to issue discipline. And it's like, you're getting on their case for this little thing, but they've been working their butt off and you're not giving them praise for that. So things like that used to frustrate me, and I would speak up. And then when it came time to promote me, they wouldn't, because they would overlook me because they didn't want to work with someone that's so negative in their mind.
Basically challenging the way that things were. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it sounds like you had both good ideas and different ideas, which is discomfort. And you see that in politics a lot, where someone with a good idea, whether it really is good for the mass majority of people or not, if it's different than what was there, there's going to be all kinds of barriers to be broken down. So it was not easy to promote you because they would have to deal with some new challenges. Which is interesting I'm glad you bring that up. The other thing I think is really cool is that for anyone listening, just to understand that Rosa's confidence did stem from her upbringing, but also it was something you were working on. Like as a leader, you were building it up over time. It's not like one day you woke up and you're like, I'm a great leader. It's just things that you started to build up over time as part of your character. And then I know you're a leadership coach, and we'll talk about that in this conversation in a moment. But how did you then take that next step and break into it and kind of earn the respect of your peers?
Yeah, I had to get humble. I had to own my own contributions to this setback.
Mm-hmm.
I had to realize that these people didn't wake up trying to make my life miserable. And in reality, I needed to own my own growth. And part of that came from actually, surprisingly, a former colleague of mine who was still in touch with some of my peers, threw a book in my box and said, hey, you might want to check out this coach. And I hadn't even considered hiring a coach to help me. So I actually did hire that coach. And during a mock panel interview with him, he asked me the question, what is a good leader to you? And I said, he is someone who blah, blah, blah. And I gave the very canned answer of what a leader is, but I said he. And it didn't even occur to me that I said he until he pointed it out. And to me, that was a big reality check, because I realized how immersed in the culture I was of having all men leading me. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought that if you had to be a leader, you had to be a he, and I was disqualifying myself. So it was the first time I realized that I hadn't even taken the time to get to know myself and show up as myself. So why should anyone pick me if I haven't even given them who I really am?
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped being rough around the edges, so to speak, and I realized to soften up and just be more humble and patient. And it came together after that.
That is so good. And it reminds me too, I remember I was working retail and I did a lot of different levels of retail, but I was in like high ticket sales, and I wanted to be a store manager. And I remember my store manager at the time telling me I wasn't ready yet. And I was about 25 years old. And I was like, it just hurt me to hear that. It felt like she was discrediting my abilities, but she wasn't. There's different parts of management and leadership that you need to learn. You need to be ready. And looking back, because I became a store manager a few years after that, probably about 4 years later, and I was much more ready, and I had to learn certain things and be ready. And she had a really strong assessment on it, and she was right. And it kind of humbled me, like you said, to realize, you know what, I wasn't ready. We're not always ready when we think we
And that's
want
hard.
it. Sometimes leaders know, like it could be sports too. You see that quarterback that wants to be like the captain, but they have to earn their stripes, have to earn the respect on the team. And I think it's really neat that you share that, being a woman, you also just, it rolled off your tongue saying he's a leader, or a leader is, you started to define it, and the first word out of your mouth was he, because that's just kind of what culture has taught us since we were born. And you didn't even intend on saying it, because I know you didn't believe that, but you said it because it was what was comfortable to your psyche, right? So I'm not a psychologist, but that's how I read it. And I actually have this question ironed out for you, because, and this like transitions really nicely into it, since we're talking about leadership. Share with us and our audience here, what do you feel separates a great leader from a good leader? Can you give us some identifiable qualities that give that it factor?
I think the first and most important thing is the leader has to care about the people they're leading.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't love those people, you should not be leading them, because when you don't have that love for people, that's when your ego creeps in. That's when your self-centeredness creeps in. That's where you start taking things personal, and you fail to see things for what they could be instead of what your assumptions tell you they are. So a leader that cares, people know when they're cared about. And one of the sayings, I don't even know who said this, but you don't know great leadership until it isn't there. And it is so true. When you have great leadership, everyone's happy, everyone's doing well, and it's easy to take it for granted. But when it's not there, boy,
Totally.
it's quick. And I think someone who cares enough will go the extra mile, won't cut corners, will take the extra 5 minutes to slow the project down for the sake of one or two people who maybe aren't caught up yet. That person will be sensitive to their people.
So what I just heard, make sure that I understood this right, so I say it out loud. Correct me if I didn't totally understand what you said. The most important characteristic of a great leader is their ability to work with people at the end of the day. So that means communication is strong, and interpersonal skills need to be strong. And I think
Right.
that's super important, especially today. I feel like today people care more about the why behind things where, I wasn't around 100 years ago. I don't know, but I think the leadership style, I feel like the leadership style today is a little bit more with you than it is pushing you. And it's also
Right.
leading from the front. So like, hey, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to get dirty. Come with me here on the trip. And I'm going to help make many leaders out of everybody here, opposed to just like the dictatorship style, which kind of worked before and
Right.
isn't, so people aren't so quick to accept it. And even in sports, like, a good football coach doesn't just yell at you, or they're not just animated, because, if you're a really good coach and you're respected and you get animated, that can work. But I feel like if that's all you got and there's no interpersonal skills and you don't understand the needs of your teammates, and this goes for football or anything, business and life. If you really don't connect and understand the people on the team, you could yell as loud as you want, but it's on deaf ears because they don't,
Right.
or they actually know that you don't understand them, and there's a disconnect immediately. And I've seen it, so many times, either personally on a team with a coach who's trying the rah-rah approach and it's not working. Or I've seen it on teams that I enjoy watching and just know that the coach is doing something that ain't working. And can you talk a little bit about that, the different styles of
No, for
coaches?
sure. I think, and I don't know if I'm going to answer it the way you're asking it. I think the biggest thing in that example is we're talking communications. And I think communications have more to do with comprehension than they do with actually speaking something. As I can tell you, Mike, I need you to do A, B, and C. But if you don't understand what I mean by A, B, and C, or if you heard it differently, that's on me more than it's on you.
Sure.
It's my job to ask follow-up questions, or it's my job to maybe have things in place to say, Mike is going to A, but then he's skipping to D. I didn't ask him to do that. Mike, what's up? Why are you going to D? Oh, it's because I heard this. And okay, that's not what I said. Let me clear that up for you. Let's go ahead and back up and let's get you back on track. So it's on me to make sure that you understood. And I think that the coach that is so impatient with his players or with his clients or hers, that they're not paying attention and they're not looking for clues, and they're not looking for the possibility that maybe I miscommunicated, maybe I wasn't understood, maybe I didn't do a good job coaching you.
Yeah.
If they're not open to that, then it's very easy for me to say Mike's worthless. He just doesn't get it. But is he though? He's actually doing what you asked. You don't realize how you said it. Maybe you need to back up and ask him for feedback. What did I say that we missed it?
Yeah, get off that power
So
trip and actually get back to just being a real human again and saying, and
we
it's
need to be a team.
I feel like a great leader too will admit that either what they said wasn't understood, which again, instead of being mad that the other person isn't getting it because they're not putting all the pieces together, a leader can be frustrated. My team's not doing this right. But a really good leader is going to say, how did I miss on the communication of that? Because obviously if more than one person's not getting it, it's like a teacher who gives an assignment, maybe it's just a little unclear, and you have 30 kids who all hand in the assignment and none of them did a great job. At what point does a teacher reflect and say, maybe I didn't give great direction? And it takes a humble, reflective, and those are two great characteristics of a leader too.
Yes.
And even if it's not their fault, good leaders, I feel, take the blame, because what is it going to do? Who's it going to serve if you start pointing fingers and saying, you know what, this guy goofed up. Okay, great. Now it's his fault and we're still no better off. A good leader could just squash it and move on. And I see that you do that in yourself. It's also important to kind of, first, before you can lead others, you have to be a leader of yourself and hold yourself accountable. And respect yourself to the way that you keep your promises that you make. So then you build your own confidence, right? And I know it's something that you've done, and I talk about this a lot on Mic'd Up, is people's purpose. There's a reason I'm doing this show and taking time out of my day, out of my week to do this, is because I feel I'm on purpose to be the host of the show. So you personally have unlocked your purpose in life, and you did that by eliminating your prior limiting beliefs. Can you share a few ways in how you've done that?
Well, I think we just touched on a leader that has self-awareness, and I needed to have that. And I touched on it a little bit for myself in the season, where I realized that I had a knack for recognizing raw talent, and I had a knack for being able to put the right players in the right situations. And I was frustrated when others didn't, when somebody got overlooked that was like the ideal candidate for that. And I would get frustrated because I felt like people were playing favorites or people were doing this. And in reality, the situations when I thought people were playing favorites, I didn't realize that networking's a thing. Like, you don't just have to have your hand to the plow and working hard and be noticed. You actually have to take a little bit of time to go and talk to people and introduce yourself. And actually, you have a role in making sure that your work is known and valued by people that it affects. Because you know, they may not have the wherewithal to say, let me go over here and look and see what a great job Rosa's doing. Like, maybe it's up to Rosa to go and introduce myself and shake hands and go, hey, remember that case that I worked on or that project I worked on? What did you think of it? I'm the one that did it. Is there any area where I can grow? Is there any feedback you can give me? I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to work here one day. Things like that maybe someone took the time to do, and that's what got them the job over the other person who maybe was a little bit more competent.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much good that every time you answer a question, you hit on like 12 amazing points. This is like, which one do I want to pick up on and work with here? But it just sounds like you were really confident in your own abilities. And then you realized that for people to appreciate and understand you, you had to interact with them. So you got yourself and you kind of, what's the word? Submerge yourself into these conversations or situations where people knew who you were. Essentially, what I'm saying is you were getting their attention. We talk about that in personal branding and marketing and social media marketing. The number one thing you need is attention, and then you have to be great once you have it. I had a whole conversation with my last guest about that, and it sounds like, hey, guess what? That's not a social media thing. People just need to know and interact with you so they get to like, trust and believe that you're the right person for whatever it is role on the team. It's kind of like, back in middle school, if you're a wallflower at the school dance, it's a lot harder for you to connect with someone and end up with a date. But, it takes some time to build that confidence and get out on the dance floor. But you need to do that professionally as well, right?
Yeah, no, and I remember the point I was going to make. I wanted to talk about decision making and owning the consequences of your decision, because you can choose to kind of be that wallflower, or you can choose to fail at it a little bit and figure it out. So I think as a leader, you start first with self-leadership and owning your own decisions and not putting blame on someone else, not giving away your power. And as a leader of a team, you can be that leader that is more of a team player, like, leads that new generation the way they need to be led and can kind of be more relatable. But when it comes down to it, this is the direction we're going. This is the decision that's mine to make. And I'll listen to the feedback from the team, but ultimately I need to make the decision. And if the team fails and it was the wrong decision, it's on me because I'm the leader. So those are the kinds of things that a leader who's not decisive and who doesn't want to take ownership of failures, people know on the team, and it creates a situation where people don't have psychological safety and no one wants to be yelled at for some failure. People stop taking risks, they stop innovating, they stop being creative, and it's on the leader.
So good. Yeah. It's important to have an environment that is welcoming unique thoughts, change, or, hey, bring something. I used to always tell my guys when I was managing in a sales environment, like, when you guys have an awesome win or story, share that with everybody, because like that's your ammunition for next time. But we all want to get better, and we're on the same team. So if I do something and it starts to work, let's talk about that in our next sales meeting, because if it's something that we can kind of streamline, boom, we're all going to win and we're all going to be more successful, right? So instead of having it an isolated event, bring it to the whole group. But you need to have a team that loves being a part of the whole group to want to do that. Otherwise, they're going to be holding it in, carrying it around. I'm not sharing this with anybody, but a good leader has an environment where everybody wants to be a part of it. And give some, share it, and open up, right? So that's, again, really, really well articulated on your part. So another question, this one stems from your Instagram account, which anybody who wants to tune into your Instagram, that's also clickable, but it's the latest post, at least from yesterday. It's talking about the perfection, right? And so or the pursuit of perfection. And it's something that I thought was really interesting that I wanted to cover, and how it can lead to stress, anxiety, and depression. Right. And so for years, I actually prided myself on being a perfectionist. I thought not only was it a good thing, but I truly believed that that's what I was after. Then I realized later on that that's not the actual goal. So can you elaborate on how,
Correct.
if you're only striving to be perfect, that things actually get left off? I'll let you actually open up on that.
Well, for starters, perfect to who?
Yeah.
Like if it's perfect to me, but you hate it, it's not perfect. So I think perfectionism is just not a good goal for many reasons. But the biggest reason I think is because it fails to to develop agility. When you're agile, you're willing to bend and to be resilient and to change with the changing times, and you're adaptive, versus when you have this fixed idea, fixed thinking of it's got to look like this,
Yeah.
then you're not bendable and you're not pliable and you're not easy to work with. And it may be that the information that led you to come up with this image of perfection was wrong. And what if there's evidence to the contrary? Now you're committed to this thing and you can't change, and you will refuse to see anything different. Now you're blind to the things that are going to get you success. So I think it's very easy for us to become invested and become frustrated when something's not working. And the reason it's not working is because you're not paying attention to the right things.
Yeah.
So I think people have burnout and experience a lot of different things through perfectionism that, there's room for error. Most of the things we do, even in my profession, look, more than 20 years, most of the time people don't die from
Making a
from
mistake.
bad decisions. I mean, obviously there's life and death decisions, but most of the time the decisions we make, you have time to come back and correct it. If you have the right people at the table to raise the red flag, if you have the safeties in place, if you plan with a certain way that there's contingencies, like there's always ways to account for error and to adapt and to have that ability to recognize early warnings.
Yeah.
But if you are so fixed in your mindset, it's going to prevent you from seeing any of that. Even if you have all those systems in place, you'll ignore them.
I totally learned that in entrepreneurship, because very rarely does everything go as set. I mean, I
Never.
probably could sit here all night as we record this and try to think of one time when I said a long-term vision was going to be this, and we get there. It always has all kinds of turns and changes and shifts. But if I only graded it on the experience being exactly what was originally set up to, it could be considered a failure, or a 0% out of 100. Or sometimes if you miss the target, you don't get a 0. You get all the experiences, which many times are even better than what you originally thought. It's like the kid who goes into college. Think about, children going, they're 18 and they got their whole lives ahead of them, and they have to figure out, pick something you're going to do. And then many times, like, what's the percentage you think? Probably 95% that change their profession at least once in college, because you have to learn and grow and get into it, and you don't know until you try it. So if we did that in business, like, here's our goal, and if it's anything short of that, you're not willing to then take all the growth and apply it to what you're learning. It's just like, again, I love talking sports because I feel like there's so many good analogies. In a season that you don't win the Super Bowl, you still have so much you learned about yourself as a coach, as a player, and you take those experiences to next season. Because the players that won the Super Bowl this year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just won it this past year. They all come with different levels of experience. You have Tom Brady, who had 6 prior wins, so he took all that knowledge with him. You have guys who've never been there, who've played since they were 5 years old, that took all their life experiences. And it's not, they didn't all just hit on perfection because they only woke up and said, we're going to hit the Super Bowl goal. It was all the learned things throughout their entire careers that brought them to that moment. I just thought it was really a cool post that you had, and it's a click-through one. So I encourage everybody to go and follow you on Instagram and get great messaging from you there as well. And it was a reminder to myself, because I'm like, sometimes I get frustrated with myself because I don't hit a target exactly how I anticipated. But holy smokes, am I missing out on all the other good that's come from it? And it's easy to beat yourself up. And social media is a great thing, but I think a lot of people can end up comparing themselves on there, whether it's intentional or not. It's hard to not compare to your peers, right? So you got to make sure you stay grounded and really focused on what matters to you in your heart, right?
Right. And I think social media is a perfect example of the people that you see that are setting themselves apart. They're not sounding like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
They're being controversial. They're saying things that maybe not everyone agrees with. But that's what really sets them apart and gets them the followers that are like-minded. Like, oh, this guy doesn't, or girl doesn't sound like everybody else. I kind of like what they have to say about A, B, and C. Or I really don't care for that one. Let me just move on. But either way, you're showing up authentically. Hopefully, not everybody
No,
not everybody is who they say they are, right? It's very easy to fake it, but ultimately, even in social media, people are craving that differentiation, that uniqueness. I think there's value to that in today's day and age.
what I'll say is I've talked to other social media influencers and highly successful people about this exact topic, and everybody has said the same thing, that it's not always the overproduced version of themselves that's getting the best hits. And there was actually a woman, I forget who it was. It's probably a good thing I don't mention her by name anyways, but she was doing these videos like almost from her pajamas or just whatever, like not in a sexy way, but just like I'm sipping my morning cup of coffee and giving you my thoughts, right? It wasn't overcalculated. And they were really good and people loved them. And she was getting tens of thousands of hits on just her kind of whatever she's feeling, what she's grateful for in the morning, sharing it. And she had really good insight. And she blew up on social media. And then once she became popular, she started to get overly produced. Like she would spend hours preparing and she'd have her best makeup on and her most expensive dress and all this stuff. And it started to get stale because what she wasn't focused on was the authentic messaging that made her popular.
Right.
And I'm not saying overly producing things is bad, because that's not true either. It's just the math on it. Like if you're using that as what's going to move you ahead without an authentic message, it's not going to work. And so
totally. Because people ultimately want you to show up. You can't get lost after you get famous.
And it's so easy. Like people are so smart now too. Like our audience is very smart. They're going to know if I'm over here trying to talk about psychology and something I'm not versed on, and they listen to me for 100 episodes and they know who I am. People at this point, if they're listening all the way through, are going to be pretty comfortable with who I am. They're going to know like what lane is mine. And I like to dance all over and learn different things. And that's why I'm doing the show. But if I come across fake and it literally is just me trying to blow smoke, people will tune out, and you don't get a second chance very often. So especially today, there's so many options. So it's really, really, really important, not only for social media marketing or podcasting, but in life, to be authentic. And that's whether we're talking dating apps or, whatever it is, like that's what's going to get you the furthest. And, and then you can also obviously get into doing the more produced version of yourself. As long as you're still you, people will love and appreciate it. And we're going to stick on that thought about learning more about you, because I'm going to pick your brain here for a second. I got a couple more questions, then you can share whatever else you'd like to get on the show today. But think of it this way. You're the author and the protagonist in your own life story, and you get to write the ending. So God willing, you live a long, prosperous life, and you're looking back and you're reflecting on it, and you get to define your legacy. What would that be?
I think for me, I want to honor my parents' legacy, right? That I created opportunities and left the place better than I found it in the most basic sense. I want to be known for investing into my family, my nieces growing up, setting them up to be successful women themselves. I don't have any nephews yet, but we have 2 on the way. Both my brother's wives are pregnant, so we'll see.
Awesome.
But I really believe that I have a role, just making sure that what we were taught, that those are universal principles that to live by, that society is better when we all show up authentically, that we show up wanting to give, not just take, and also show up and just put in some work. For me, it's all about changing the workplace and not burning out our people, and actually valuing everybody's talent, and actually finding real solutions to the right problems in the world.
Oof. It's so good. I think so many people are again trying to focus on kind of the what's in it for them, right? And it's easy to get kind of lost in that. Like it's me and my family and stuff like that. And it's important to take care of yourself and your family. But at the end of the day, when you're serving, like you mentioned there, that you're serving a community to make sure that they thrive, and you want to basically inspire people to go and find themselves, and by using the principles that you
Right.
talked about, unlocking for yourself, and then everybody is being their unique, authentic self, right? So I think that's super inspiring for me to hear. And I just want to thank you again. I mean, you come here, you got this glow about you. We met a couple weeks ago, and unfortunately, I'm going to share this with our audience. We had to kind of redo this because of a technology situation. We moved to a different platform, and things seem to be working really well. And I was joking because I had lost all my notes. I didn't, for some reason, didn't save them. And it kind of forced me to be uncomfortable for a second. I had to kind of go back and dig a little bit deeper. And we were joking that there's good things that come from that. Like you used the example of a term paper in college. Like if you just copied it and you kind of were coasting and you had it all done, and then the night before somehow you lose the copy of it or whatever, but you didn't really do all the work. You had to do it again, and then it ended up being better. So I know our first conversation was really strong, but I think we even got it better tonight because we just had a little bit more fun with it. Last time it was our first time meeting each other, right?
Right. No, absolutely. I think we did have more fun.
And we can do this again anytime. I'd like to hit on one more question or two and then just kind of give you the floor and remind people how they can connect with you and anything else you'd like to share. But what I always say is, again, goes back to the beginning of this conversation tonight when I shared about why I do my show. And my mission is to inspire people to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. Someone's listening right now, they're driving, they're at home, they're at work, and they're just thinking about that idea. And they're like, I know I want to do this and I have it in my heart to do this, but maybe they're a little afraid to push forward on it. What would you tell that person?
Don't second guess it. If you're getting that pull, that tug, it's for a reason. And you don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to make a decision. We talked about owning the consequences. The consequences are going to be good. And don't be surprised when you start taking steps after that decision, when your world starts to fall apart a little bit. If you're married, your spouse will start to give you a hard time, or you have pets, your pet decides to get sick, or you have children and your children start acting up. The world that you knew is going to change around you because you're trying something different and you're kind of challenging the status quo. That's all normal. Don't take that as a sign to stop. Take that as a sign of, I need to keep going because my new normal awaits, and I need to get the success by not quitting, but also by realizing that I might be surprised to find that there's going to be people who jump in my corner and decide to support me.
Really?
And those people may surprise you. Expect that. You don't have to go at it alone. There's people that want to support you.
Yeah, there's a lot of support now, especially with the ease of information, access to information. You don't have to be, a member of the elite to get like 100 years ago to get top quality, or like great information is available at a touch of a button today. So use that. But also, like what you said too, is, be ready for the adversity because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. And I can also say, guys, talking to the audience for a second here, like when it feels like you're at that moment, I've had it a couple times where it's like you're just about ready to tap out. Like picture like if it's a boxing movie and the boxer, you could feel their eyes like barely being able to open again. And it's just, is it over? But it pushes you to a different limit. And then something good typically is right around the corner. When you get up again the next time is when something really good happens. And it happens whenever I feel like I'm tested in faith. And it happens when I'm tested in relationships. And it certainly has happened when I'm tested in business. Like either a huge client falls off the face of the earth, or there's a problem, or, I actually, previous to press and record tonight, I was just dealt a huge blow that I have to work on after this. And so, but I always feel like whenever those happen, if you take everything and how it happened for you, you then have something you can work with. Like, how did this situation happen for me? So it's going to happen either way. You get the gut punch either way. One person can turtle up and either give up or move on to something different. Or you can say, man, that blow hurt so bad, but what did I learn from it? Is there something physically I could have done, mentally, emotionally I could have done differently so this doesn't happen again? And I feel like until you have the situation, how do you really learn from it? Like we talked about earlier, you need to not be focused on being perfect, but be focused on what you can do to learn and move forward.
And I think I don't want to overlook the part of, you take that gut punch and you're down. I don't want to overlook the self-awareness that comes from being down, because maybe there's decisions you can make while you're down that I didn't realize I lashed out at people, or I didn't realize that when I get hurt, I do this. Like, don't be so quick to leave that place. Or maybe you realize I'm actually really a forgiving person. I'm, maybe you realize there's qualities about you that are really strong, that are good, that you took for granted. Like, don't be in a hurry to leave that place. If you take a gut punch, sit in it for a while. Don't be so quick. And also look around and just see who's there, because those are the people that love you and appreciate them. And maybe there's something that can come out of this that you will now improve on that relationship.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like you don't want to sign up for adversity. You don't want, oh yeah, punch me in the gut so I can learn. Nobody says that. Maybe some are a little bit crazy. If you're a boxer, maybe you would be like, hey, punch me in the gut for an hour so I can learn how to take blows.
They don't sign up to lose, though. Hopefully they set up to win.
Yeah, not what I'm saying. But what I will tell you is the magic of all the things. Like, I can tell you, I'm a young entrepreneur who 4 years ago started a company. Just about anything that could go sideways did. But I have these really amazing relationships with people, connections, clients now, businesses going well. Through the pandemic, I've actually built up stronger. So guys, I'm an example of someone who is sticking with it and continuing to get up off the mat. I've learned from things. I've grown. I'm a hard-headed Italian, and even I was able to learn and adapt and not be stuck in my old ways. But it happens, and I do feel that, there's a saying, and it's right out of the Bible, but it's God equips the called. Right. He doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. So if you feel called to do something right now, know that if you're going about it with the right energy, you'll be amazed how things start. If you're looking for them, especially, right, you'll start to see the puzzle pieces fall into place. So you have to do your part, but it's amazing whether you believe in God or not. But when you take action and communicate with the universe, and there's a thing called law of attraction, which is a whole nother episode, and I've talked about it previously. Learn about that. But when you do the right things and you believe in it and pay attention to what's going on around you, you'll see those puzzle pieces. If you ignore them, they could be right on the other side. It's the guy who's digging, who turns around 3 feet from gold. But I'll tell you what, you first have to start digging until you even have a shot at it. And I'm not talking just about monetary gold. I'm talking about fruitful relationships, businesses. And I'll tell you, the most successful people I know, they're making buck doing what they do, but they do it because there is a purpose or a calling that they would do it years before they made any decent amount of money doing it. They did it, typically. Very rarely do I run into someone who's just like starts off from day one and they're just loaded with so much cash and their passion's no, it's typically the people who are down on the mat and still have this craziness to get up. So guys, if you're listening to me right now and you got that crazy in you, Rosa and I are saying, go and do it. And then reach out to us and let us know what you're doing, because I want to hear it. And I know Rosa's available. Hit her up on social media and say hello and let her know that you came to her through the show. And, you're someone who's available on social media to talk to as well, right?
Yes,
you're like,
absolutely.
Mike, you just signed me up for something I never. No.
If you
but you got to be
website,
social on social media.
No, totally.
Yeah.
All of my links are on my website. If you just go to my website, I'm there, and I try to be pretty present and be responsive to messages. Let me know that you heard us on the show, and I'll definitely try to respond to any requests. I'm always excited to hear back.
Yeah, something I definitely know is the most successful people on social media are social on there. They're not just creating content and expecting everybody to love it. It's engaging, and that goes for social media in real life. Like if you invest and engage in real meaningful conversations, more fruit comes from that, opposed to just saying, "Look, I'm talking over here," or like the guy who just releases a book and expects everyone to show up and buy it. Well, what buy-in do they actually have? They don't even know who you are, right? So.
Totally.
Really, really good. Is there anything I didn't ask you about, we didn't talk about, or anything you'd like to throw out into the universe tonight, into our audience?
Yeah, no, I want to thank you first of all for having me. I always love and appreciate anyone who honors me by having me on your platform. You've worked very hard, and anyone who's listening to the show knows that Mike is definitely here to serve you. And I just highly encourage you to take one thing that you heard today and do something with it. And then reach back and tell Mike and let him know he's appreciated because he did answer the call. But I think any person who's answering the call appreciates feedback of what's working and what's not. And let's just help them get this show even bigger because there's other people who need it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. It is true. Like I love doing this and I would do it whether anyone said they loved it or not, because I get to meet great people like Rosa every week, and I learn so much from it. So to me, this is kind of like my little education session once a week, but it's more important.
Uh-huh.
It always feels better to me knowing that other people are tuning in. Like when I get that random text message, oh my God, this week's episode is amazing. It's fire. And you see people's responses. Yeah. Of course, I get like a little kid on Christmas morning about that because this is truly not about me. I mean, I enjoy it, but I kind of feel like I'm the vehicle, right? And I'm just in the place of getting the information to and from. And so it feels great when someone says it really made a difference. And I've had that happen multiple times and always feels really good. So I appreciate you saying that because sometimes it does go a little bit unnoticed. And you have a podcast as well. And I mentioned it at the top of the show. Why don't you tell people about that too so they can tune in? Again, it's called Powerful at Work. What kind of stuff do you focus on there? Give us some takeaways.
We do mainly interviews. I also love talking to people and meeting new faces. But we try to equip business leaders who are running teams, and we try to showcase incidents where what's working in the workplace. We've had people who are in the field of diversity, like people who have disabilities or have mental illness, and share a perspective for business owners to understand that everyone brings value and that there's an experience that is through culture can create success for everyone. So tune in. They're meant to be super short, 20 minutes or so. And we just want to equip you and give you resources to be able to be successful in your organization.
Yeah, and you do a great job with the show. I've been tuning in and really appreciate your content as well. Thank you so much,
Rosa.
Have
you as well.
I'm a little bit bummed out. Like an hour. That was probably the quickest hour I've ever had on the show. We just were getting warmed up and it's over. And now I'm going to try to say your name one more time and see if I can say it faster. Rosa Ponce de Leon.
There it is.
Little better? An hour to practice. A little bit better?
Nailed it.
Pat myself on the back. Hey, good. You got it. No,
absolutely.
I mean, I've had a couple of weeks of practice to get that into since our last time when we attempted our first recording. And I just love it. I love it. My last name being DiCioccio. People butcher it all the time. I say it, and then someone literally 4 seconds later will not repeat it correctly. So I get it. So it's always fun when I have someone on the show with a cool name. And also my grandmother's name is Rosa. I don't know if I mentioned that to you when we talked, but
no.
Yeah, my late grandmother and she and I, we had a really special connection. And something I'll say before we run is you talked about how your dad and your family just kind of let it be, like they were very real with you. There was no sugarcoating or spoon feeding. And she was very much like that. I mean, she came right over. Both sets of grandparents are right from Italy. And I mean, what they've done to actually set my family up here in Buffalo, New York, to have any level of success was really incredible. They took a huge risk in coming over to the country. And so she was a tough old Italian woman, but she had a big heart too. And whenever she would tell me something like a compliment or something I did made her happy, it always meant a lot to me to see her happy, because she equally would be like, if you overcooked or undercooked something or gave her a glass of water that was not the right temperature. I mean, that sounds extreme, but there was one time when my uncle, when he was little, gave her like a warm glass of water or something, and I guess she splashed in his face when he was a youngster. Like, what's
immediate
this?
feedback.
Yeah, immediate feedback. So my point is, she was tough. That was Grandma Rose. But she, whenever she would compliment me, like I grew up playing the drums, and she actually lived at my parents' house when I was a youngster for a couple months before transitioning. Unfortunately, she had to get into a nursing home when my grandpa passed away. And during those few months, I was practicing the drums in the basement, which, I wasn't quite Buddy Rich yet. But when I was playing, I can hear her upstairs. and she would be saying, "Go, Mikey, go, go, Mikey, go."
Oh,
And she loved hearing me drum, and that was like all I needed. So I think I would have continued to play drums either way, but I certainly know that in my heart, whenever I drum, I do think of my grandma and Grandma Rose. She's just always a special person, and it's unfortunate that she never got to meet her great granddaughter, my daughter Isabel, because I think the two of them would have been
oh,
besties, you know.
totally. I
So
bet. Spoiled granddaughter right there.
yeah, that's
Great
my Rosa
granddaughter.
connection. So that's what got you on the
Awesome.
show. It wasn't all this other stuff. It was
Thank
just your
you.
beautiful name.
I'll take it.
This was so much fun. Thank you again, audience. Thank you
Thank
guys
you
for
so much.
tuning in all the way to the end. Check out Rosa's website and social media. And until next time, we'll talk to you guys later. I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mikedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mikedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCioccio, MikeDiCioccio. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.